We were pretty famous back in high school. Trust us!
Had a whole future ahead of us, but now we suck.
All that potential now is flowing in the aqueducts.
Through the sands of time, many did forget.
But now our time has come to resurrect. But a podcast?
Sad I know, but can you blame us?
We are desperate to be much more than high school famous.
Hello and welcome to High School Famous, a podcast where we will probably talk about high school, but hopefully we'll not. I am Matt.
Hi, I'm Sean from high school.
But not yours. Maybe. Maybe it is. Who knows? So, Sean, we didn't do news last week. We have news to do because we did not do news last week.
I botched it last week, so we were newsless.
We were newsless, but we had a guest. So, you know, maybe when we have guests, we don't do news.
Well, I think we should. I think that I just forgot.
I agree.
And I kind of felt bummed that Eric had to miss out on the news.
Yeah.
You know.
He'll get to hear all sorts of news when he listens to episodes.
Yeah.
So,
do you want me to go first this time?
Yeah,
I forget what we did.
Yeah, go ahead. Go first. Why not?
All right, everyone. It opens almost the same way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another tale of Sean. I'm happy to announce that the other shoe has finally dropped. If you remember from me never telling you, the other shoe is what I call my right testicle. My left one is called Joseph Merrick, for obvious reasons. So due to this recent development, I can finally say I'm now fully arousable. Why? Before this, I was only able to get 66% of the way. Don't get me wrong, it was a firm 66% based on the Yelp reviews. I like firm as firm. Okay. In other Sean news, my personal stock market crashed a few weeks ago. I lost a fortune to myself, and now I'm forcing myself to live on the streets. It's been 2 days and 4 nights of street living, and not since both have I ever felt so alive. There are 3 things to know if you're ever forced to or unforced to live on the streets. Voluntary. Number 1, Larry can be trusted only after he has taken his meds, which is never. Number 2, there is a thick line between earning money and receiving money. Number 3, doing crack is not what I hoped it would be. Also, I learned how to make street soup, which is where you and your street family put various liquids, bodily or foreign, into a discarded pot and toss in whatever meat, bodily or foreign, you were about to find that day. Unrelated, I have been vomiting more than usual the last few days. That's all for now. Until next time, always remember to keep it. Okay.
Yeah.
So no matter what street you may or may not be forced or unforced to live on, Larry is the guy you should be concerned about.
And he never takes his meds.
At least there's a thick line between earning money and receiving it.
Right.
So it's easy. It's not easy to confuse.
Right. Exactly. It's a very thick line. I don't know which I'd rather do, earn it or receive it.
Receive it, yeah. I wonder what I hoped crack would be. And what I experienced
only you can tell us that. You're wondering, yet you're the only one who can tell us.
Well, I guess I was always hoping that doing crack would be a way to receive money. But it turns out it's typically the other way around.
It's a way to earn money.
Yeah.
Doing crack is how you earn money. That doesn't sound bad at all.
No, too bad it's not heroin. Otherwise, there'd be a thick line joke I could make about heroin. But you chose crack. Okay.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah. You picked the wrong drug for this.
Yeah, I really need to think ahead of what jokes you might make.
Yeah. Well, that's my news.
That's your news.
Well,
anything else you want to talk about with your news?
I was only able to get 66% of the ways, but it was a firm 66%.
Right.
So I guess now that I don't know why having only one testicle drop. A, why is it 66% and not 50? And B, why does it affect that at all? And then, why is my level of arousal increased by having another testicle drop?
I have no idea, Sean. It's your penis.
And then, if it's a firm 66%, that can only look good for me now that I can get to, I guess I could assume 100%.
Well, apparently you are fully arousable.
But based on this math, who knows? It could exceed. It could be 132%.
I assume it was 66% just based on the one working or descended testicle and the, I assume, descended penis.
Descended, ascended. It depends on the day,
right?
Or the time of day,
or the temperature.
Yeah. And it's cold out right now. But or this could suggest that the first testicle is 2/3. It's 2/3. The new one is 1/3 the size of the other. Or
half
if you're gonna put the two together, if you're gonna put yeah. Right. That's better. Yeah. Twice. Wow. That doesn't seem it didn't seem like it should work out that way. But yeah, that suggests that the new one is half the size
of the
one that had dropped previously. The new one,
the newly descended.
The newly descended. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I like. That's what I call my nieces and nephews when they're born. They're the newly descended.
Testicles?
No. Whenever a child is born, they are the newly descended.
It's strange that, but while spending a few minutes talking about my testicles, you start thinking about your nieces and nephews.
I just happened to mention nieces and nephews as children being born.
Right.
I could have just said any child.
You could have said children, but you went for your nieces and nephews. So
I won't edit it out.
You might have to have a conversation with your sisters about that.
I don't want to have a conversation with my sisters, just in general.
All right. Well, that's all I got for my news. Your news may be shorter.
Let's find out. So my bologna diet has been going well, but my diet bologna makes my stomach upset. And thanks to that botched surgery, my stomach is the way to my heart. Unless, I guess, I have to drink blood now. Because if I ate food and the food went from my stomach to my heart, then I'd die on a full stomach. I say I guess, which suggests I'm thinking of this now and have been eating food up until I can't read today. And I wrote this, so it's my news. I should know what it said. Okay. Like I'm cross-eyed. So, anyways, as I was saying, I say I guess, which suggests I'm just thinking of this now, and I have been eating food up until this point. This is also evidenced by the fact that I've been on a bologna diet. Why bologna? But make no bones about it. I gotta go with my gut on this one. Now, I don't want to sound too cheeky, but to say I'm thick-skinned would be a little too on the nose. And then I'd have to keep whatever I'm thinking about at arm's length, and I'd end up with my foot in my mouth. But after that, ears and knees and ribs and spine and body parts sayings. I'm just confused by any of this.
How can you be confused? I think everyone else. I mean, I'm the one who should be confused.
I must have been high on my bologna diet at the time when I wrote this.
Yeah.
Because this, I'm just lost at this point.
Well, I like how both of ours involved us puking or getting upset stomachs. And didn't the last one we do have similarities?
There was one a couple weeks ago where you used that same exact line of that you've been unrelated. You've been puking a lot more the last few days.
Oh, really?
I recycled the line.
Oh, I see. No, I didn't mean that. I meant another week where both of our newses had some similar elements. I think there was one where we were both killing dogs or something.
No, I have never killed a dog. It was we had both mentioned people being jerks.
Oh, that's not as good.
Yeah. So not as in tune as you once thought.
Care to explore or elaborate any bit on your news? Or
I don't know what I would even elaborate. I'd have to reread this to try to remember what I was thinking. I mean, these are definitely words.
Yeah.
Bologna diet bologna. I don't know. But I don't understand the and then I'd have to keep whatever I'm talking about at arm's length, and then I'd end up with my foot in my mouth. But after that, ears and knees and ribs and spine and body part sayings.
So I can explain.
Oh, can you elaborate?
Yeah,
Can you get into my head? What was I?
This is just my interpretation of your news because I know you so well. So, you just started rattling off sayings that involve body parts, like make no bones about it. I got to go with my gut on this one. Now, I don't want to sound too cheeky, but to say I'm thick-skinned would be a little too on the nose.
Oh.
And then you just ran out of those things, so you just started rattling off body parts, and then ended it off by saying body parts sayings, because that's what these all were.
Got it. I mean, now that you say it, it's so obvious.
Because it's one that people say a lot is, the weight of my heart is through my, and then whatever
stomach,
it may be. My stomach is common.
Chest.
So I went with that a little bit, and then I decided to fill it up, or you decided to fill it up with those. A collage of sayings, if you will, that involve body parts.
Well, I'm glad you understood where I was getting with that.
Yeah,
because no one else did.
Don't underestimate our vast listener base.
If you're listening to this and you understood a single fragment of what that was getting at, just don't.
Well,
just don't even respond.
Now that
just leave us alone.
Because I've already explained it, so.
Well, they can
say
well, no, I mean, they'd say like, oh yeah, before it was explained to me, I totally got what was going on.
Yeah, that's true. It's a possibility.
I don't feel like anybody would lie about that.
Let's hope not.
Right.
Because if you're going to lie about that, you're probably pretty cavalier about lying about most things.
Exactly. You are not to be trusted at all. You are the Larry of the streets. You're the Larry of the households.
Yeah. You're the Larry that's not on your meds ever.
Right. Because you cannot be trusted unless you're on your meds.
Being unforced to live on the streets is a strange way of just saying that you've chosen to live on the streets.
Yeah, I like adding "un" in front of words that don't need it.
Like unpossible or unimpossible?
That would just mean it's impossible, wouldn't it?
No, unimpossible means it's
not impossible. Means it's not impossible.
Meaning it's possible.
Right? Is that what I said?
Yeah. Well, you said.
I don't know.
First, you said it was.
Whatever I said
meant that it was impossible.
Whatever I said is what I meant. That's what I meant, not what I necessarily said.
So whatever you said is what you meant, not necessarily what you said.
No, what I meant was what you said. Whether or not that's what I said.
So okay? No matter what you said, you meant what I said.
Yes.
I mean that's not unimpossible. So wait, that means it is impossible if it's not unimpossible.
Oh, it's too many double negatives.
So anyway, the big discussion for today is there's lots of movies. I don't know if we talked about this at all before, but there are lots.
We have, whether we've talked about it on here.
Right. There are a lot of quote unquote classic movies that everyone and their mother and their grandmother by this point, based on the year of release, has seen that I have not seen.
Right.
And so I decided to watch one of those movies, and that movie was the original Die Hard, the 1988 Bruce Willis movie Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally finished watching it half an hour ago.
Right.
So it's pretty fresh in my brain. But you chose not to watch it beforehand because you think you've seen it well enough to be able to talk about it.
Yes.
How many times would you guess or estimate that you maybe have seen it, like a ballpark? Do you watch it yearly?
No. I mean, there's the ongoing argument of whether or not it's considered a Christmas movie because the movie takes place on
Christmas Eve.
So a lot of people.
It takes place New Year's Eve?
I believe so. I believe it's
Christmas Eve.
But so there's a lot of people that call it a Christmas movie, and then a lot of people argue against that it's a Christmas movie. Bruce Willis himself has argued that it is not a Christmas movie. I like to consider it a Christmas movie because it's an unorthodox Christmas movie, kind of like Gremlins, where it's movies that take place during Christmas time, but they're not about Christmas. So
right.
I kind of enjoy those as Christmas movies more than traditional ones. But yeah, it's not something I watch every year because of that, but sometimes I'll choose that as kind of like a fun Christmas movie to watch. But
now, do you know if either Roderick Thorpe or Jeb Stewart or Stephen E. De Souza have ever weighed in on the idea that it is or is not a Christmas movie?
I've never seen anything about any of them saying anything about it, and I know those are like the director and the writers.
Well, yeah,
Stewart and Souza are the writers.
the screenplay writers,
Yeah.
and then Roderick Thorpe is credited as writing the novel.
He's the novelist. Yep, the novel "Nothing Lasts Forever" that the movie is based off of.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, it was.
All right.
It was supposed to be a sequel to the book "The Detective" that he had previously written.
Oh.
But to
Okay.
answer your question of how many times have I possibly watched this movie, we'll get there 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
I've probably seen it over a dozen times.
Okay. And so it came out in 88.
Mm-hmm.
We were both, 6 years old?
Yep.
Depending on the time of year it came out. Probably if it's set in that around Christmas time. I'm guessing it was released around Christmas time.
It was released.
Or was it a summer blockbuster?
It was a summer blockbuster, July 15th of 88.
Oh.
So we were both 5.
We were 5 still, yeah. Both Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman looked quite young in this movie.
It was Alan Rickman's first major movie role.
I haven't seen Reginald VelJohnson in a while.
Right.
But he may very well look very similar now to how he looked in that movie.
He's definitely old. You can tell he's definitely older now.
I was very
aged quite a
excited
bit.
when he came on the screen.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in it. So I took some notes down while I was watching it.
Okay.
I don't know if these are going to be compelling or not, but I thought that conversation that he had at the very beginning, by he, I mean Bruce Willis's character, John McClane, with the guy sitting next to him on the plane about being able to survive air travel is to take your shoes and socks off and make fists with your feet.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very strange thing to say. I've never heard of anything like that before. And once he did that, I kind of figured, okay, this was just some really strange excuse to get him to not have shoes on. Then later on, when he takes out that first terrorist guy and tries to put his shoes on, he's like, oh, I get a terrorist that has shoes smaller than my sister's or whatever. I'm like, okay, there's a reason they're keeping him without shoes. And that's going to come into play later, I'm sure.
Yep.
So it was very interesting to see someone smoking at baggage claim.
Yeah. It's crazy to even think about that because, like, even just older movies seeing stuff like that, you never really saw, I guess, smoking at baggage claim even in older movies, really, but just being able to do certain things that you could do back then, even like if I rewatch older movies, I don't even like process or think about that kind of stuff because it's just like, oh yeah, it was back then.
Well, and one thing I didn't get is obviously there's a part where he reaches up to the overhead compartment to grab his bag, and the guy that was sitting next to him saw that he had a gun. He had a gun on him,
right?
And I was like, yeah, he's a cop, but even though he's a cop, and it was 1988, would he have been able to just be on a plane with a gun? He wasn't traveling like as an on-duty police officer. So would that have been allowed back then?
I don't know, and that's funny because I've never questioned that. It's always just been like, it's just like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, like the smoking at baggage claim, I was like, okay, I mean, people used to be able to smoke on planes and stuff, so why not in baggage claim? But then I'm like, unless there's some sort of reason for his job to be on that plane as a cop,
right?
I don't think just as a passenger he would be allowed to carry,
right? And just like even
put
like
that in his luggage.
Like I'd have to ask some cops, but it's like, hey, if you're going on vacation, do you carry your gun with you just in case some terrorists take over Nakatomi Tower,
the plaza or whatever, that specific building?
Well, if you're in LA, that building is still there. So,
wait a minute. So they repaired it?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Next little thing I noticed.
So we're 5 minutes into the movie. Continue.
Well, okay. So the next thing I kind of jotted down was at the party. Now,
okay. Oh, we jumped way ahead.
It's a Christmas party.
Yes,
so this is why I'm thinking
party.
this was set around Christmas time and not New Year's Eve. The pregnant woman is proposing drinking. Like, oh, do you think this little baby's ready for whatever she said? And then the woman who plays John McClane's wife or separated wife, whoever it is, says, oh, I think she's ready to tend the bar or something like that. So the pregnant woman wants to just start drinking at the party, I think. And the boss seems to be like, I think the baby's ready to be a bartender. Like, go for it. That's what I got out of that little line.
It's the 80s.
Yeah.
At least she's not doing coke.
Right. Or crack or whatever. I thought it was weird. Okay. They show, I'm going to be jumping. I mean, I kind of wrote these in order as I saw them, but they're not going to be like, they're going to be kind of weird random thoughts about weird parts of the movie.
That's totally fine.
Probably aren't standout. Sadly, there's a typically expected, what appears to be a Mexican nanny.
Oh, yeah.
Working for white people. Black limo driver driving around a white guy. A guy serving and collecting drinks at the Christmas party was a black guy serving for a bunch of white people, and that rich Japanese businessman.
Right.
I just saw a lot of typical representation back then. I picked up on that right away. I thought it was odd that, and maybe it's just because John McClane's had said he never rode in a limo before, but he rode in the front of the limo.
Oh yeah.
Was it just because it's like that's not his thing, that's not his style? He's a regular. He's one of the people. He's a New York cop, so maybe he's just like, I'm not gonna ride in the back of the limo. I'm gonna ride in the front with you. Like maybe he's just like thinking he's not above the driver. Argyle.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I never really thought too much of that.
Well, I'm gonna make you think about this movie in ways you never have.
Apparently.
Let me see. I thought it was interesting that that building, the office building, had a touchscreen directory. That seemed pretty high tech for back then, didn't it?
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, who's to say it was real, or if it was just trying to, how movies just try to make things look fancier and cooler than they are. Yeah. Oh, it's, they have touchscreens, so it's very advanced, crazy cinema. It's like it doesn't really actually work. It's just all movie magic.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's this big scar on Bruce Willis's shoulder, like by his shoulder.
Okay.
And I don't know. I was wondering, is that a real scar or was that just put in for the movie? Because they didn't seem to reference it or make it come into play at all. So I wonder if he really has a huge scar like that.
I never even noticed that, to be honest. So I have no idea. I mean, obviously it had nothing to, like, they didn't reference it at all, so it had nothing to do with the actual character. So I don't know why they would
really
just like,
scar
let's do some makeup on here for no reason. I don't know.
Right. So that makes me curious what this giant scar on Bruce Willis is from. How did he get that scar? Let's see. Oh, I put down keeping him barefoot. I figured out that there was a reason. I wrote Mr. Winslow when Reginald Bell Johnson came on the screen. I was excited. And there's a conversation later where they're talking about, when John McClane over walkie-talkie asked him if he has any kids, and he's talking about how his wife has one on the way, I was like, he's gonna die. I thought that the Al character was gonna get shot then, because I think I was thinking of that. The Simpsons did that little McBain clip where one guy is like, "Oh yeah, I'm a week away from retirement, and my wife and I are gonna travel the world like we always wanted." Blah 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 blah. And then some guy comes in and blows him away. So
that's like a typical trope.
Yeah. So when his character was talking about, my wife's got our first on the way, and then McClane says, hopefully someday my kids get to hang out with Al Jr. someday.
Right.
I thought, like, oh man, he's dead. But I was happy to find out that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah, and this is me also knowing nothing about any Die Hard sequels. So obviously, aside from Bruce Willis, I don't know what characters, if any, are in the sequels. So if Sergeant Al Powell is in any of the future Die Hard movies, I was not aware. Is he in any of the other ones?
I'm trying.
Bruce Willis.
I haven't watched. I haven't seen Die Hard 2 in a while, and I can't remember if anybody made an appearance in that one or not. Reginald Vell Johnson's in that one a little bit, I think. Not a lot, but he's in it. But I think that's kind of it. And then after that, I don't think there's any more people that reprise roles.
I like how they were just subtle ways to legitimately throw in some explanations, like the fact that I think he was on the 32nd floor for a while.
Okay.
And it was pretty much empty. It looked like it was being constructed or being built.
Renovations.
Yeah, and then the boss, Mr. Takagi, had pointed out at some point that they were doing work on like 4 more floors. So it's like they throw in that it's going to be expected that there are floors like that are unfinished. Like,
yeah,
I think that there's like subtle little lines that sort of explain. Like, I think that doesn't. I don't know if that exists in movies anymore so well.
Exposition?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
You think
there's
but that doesn't feel so like obvious and forced.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
that just
no,
felt like a casual conversation, but it was purposeful.
When they can do exposition in a casual way, then it doesn't feel like exposition. I feel like a lot of movies now are getting worse and worse at that, where they just dump exposition on you like crazy. And then it's just like, all right, well, now I know all this crap. And there's tons of, and like, just like abusive foreshadowing of just like showing this certain thing, oh, there's a really like awesome, crazy gun or something that's just like on display over here. Clearly that's going to be used in the, in the third act. Oh, that's what's going to end up getting used to kill the bad guy or the monster or whatever,
When John McClane took out that first guy, who was the other criminal's brother. I don't remember any of their names, but
Carl.
And he sent him down and then to the elevator with that message on his sweater or sweatshirt. I was kind of hoping there'd be more subtle things like that he was going to do.
Yeah. So I think so if we want to get into like the differences between the book and the movie, we can go crazy because so in the movie, I'll just do this, I'll do it if it makes sense to do it. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but the movie, it says, now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho. In the book, the difference is he puts, now we have a machine gun. Because he wanted them to think that there was more than one person.
I wonder why they didn't keep that.
There was a lot. I mean, well, there's a lot of changes from the book to the movie. The main ones being that the main character's name is different, but that doesn't matter. But the character in the book, the John McClane character in the book, is actually an older cop, and he's visiting his daughter, not his ex-wife or his estranged wife. That's like one of the biggest difference. It's like terrorist group, not a group of robbers disguising themselves as terrorists, which is what the movie is. And just like their reasoning behind why they're doing it, the type of company's completely different. Just lots of different stuff, and like the ending is completely different.
I feel like the 80s,
a lot of changes.
I feel like they had the formula down for like a decent action movie back then.
Yeah,
because 70s and 80s, I think, because aren't a lot of those big, famous, classic sort of action movies all from that era, kind of?
For the most part, I'd say, yeah.
Like Rambo and Commando and I can't think of more, but
well, all the best ones too. If you look at them, like First Blood, was based off of a novel, and then Die Hard's based off a novel. So when you get a lot of those ones that were based off novels, they're excellent and like really well done movies. I don't know if Commando was, but Commando's kind of just like a shoot 'em up, like pretty nonsensical.
Okay,
it's a pretty ridiculous movie. That doesn't need to be on your list.
I don't need to watch that one.
No, I mean, if you want to just watch a senseless action movie, a senseless Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie, go ahead and watch it. It's full of cheesy Arnold lines and stuff. But
I mean, that's why you'd watch them these days, especially.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much
just to see that.
But yeah, the '80s was a big hit for those kind of action movies for sure.
When Sergeant Al Powell was called in to check out the building to see if there's any legitimacy to McClane's call. When I knew he had to get his attention when he was about to leave, I was just waiting for him to throw a body out the window, and that's exactly what he did.
And then started shooting at the car, which seemed unnecessary.
Was that him shooting at the car?
Yeah,
I couldn't. So I'm sure that was just. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he threw the body out.
Gets flung out the building. That should be evidence
started shooting at the car.
Something's going on.
But I guess but then I guess they'd just be like, oh, somebody committed suicide. But then the shooting at the car is like, I guess, being like,
no, you're right.
Yeah, some crazy stuff's happening.
Right. It could have been, because I remember when the head of the LAPD shows up and he says something like, well, what about the body that dropped? Oh, it's probably just some depressed accountant or whatever he said. Yeah. Let's see. I'm pretty sure. So when they first show them counting down to the news broadcast where they're going to start covering all this, the guy doing the countdown goes all the way down to 1, and I'm pretty sure you would not count the last couple numbers.
Yeah, typically they stop at like 3, I think, usually, right?
Yeah. I mean, if we've all seen Wayne's World,
Right.
you don't say two or one. And then there was just a
why
couple.
Don't you say two or
there
one?
was because you don't. Well, why not? You just don't. Okay. That's a joke. We can jump into Wayne's World for a second. There's a joke in that movie that was a pretty adult joke, but I did not think of it as an adult joke when I watched it as a kid, and I liked it. I thought it was just Wayne being a brat. But when he says, "Oh, and so will be doing the hand cues," and then Wayne goes, "Russell, I believe it was I that requested the hand job."
Right.
And I thought he was just being a brat, like just to mess with him and say, I wanted to do that. But years later, I realized what it was. There's a couple. I mean, I don't think I really jotted one down, but there's a silly moment where when all the LAPD show up and they're sort of storming the building, one cop just gets hurt by a flower bush, like there's thorns, and he's just like, "Ow!" And there's silly things like this sprinkled in the movie that are completely unnecessary. But they just make it kind of real, I guess, you know. Also, I thought when this was going on, the guy, I don't remember his character's name, but he was the guy who was in charge of like disabling the locks. He was sort of the tech guy in a way. It's a very intense moment. He's meant to be the eyes now. He's supposed to watch all the monitors and let them know when cops are approaching and stuff like that. And timing is probably very critical in moments like this, but he chooses to initially describe that cops are coming by reciting parts of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." And he throws in the middle of that 4 cops are on the way. Very odd decision making by that guy.
He was so confident.
Right, but yes, it's set around Christmas, and so. But I would think, how did this guy get recruited at this level of criminal activity if he's mouthing off crap like that at a moment's notice, especially in very tense situations?
Right.
The news jerk, the field reporter, is the jerk from Ghostbusters who tried to shut down the. So I recognize that. He just seems to play a dickhead in those two movies. I haven't seen his entire.
He does a good job playing a dick.
I wasn't going to write this down. I thought of this at the beginning, and then I decided to write it down later. How did Hans Gruber know absolutely everything about Mr. Takaji's professional life and everything about him, but had no idea what he looked like? Because he's asking him to identify himself, and he's listing off his whole credentials, like his college degrees and this and that. He's going to know what he looks like if he's done that much research on this guy?
You'd think so.
Yeah, I know so.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So, another thing, you can't interrupt on a walkie-talkie. There were several moments in this movie where someone's saying something on a walkie-talkie and the other person just interrupts them. And that causes the person to stop saying what they're saying and immediately listen. That's not how walkie-talkies work.
It's very true.
It happened a few times in this movie, and I'm like, okay, this is an action movie.
Yep. It's just that there's certain things like that you just don't care. It's just like, oh yeah, okay. You just kind of it's those things you don't kind of. Most people probably don't think about that at all. But yeah, that definitely wouldn't work. All you do is just cut off hearing what they were saying.
Yeah,
and they'd continue to talk on their end, and then they'd stop, and all of a sudden they'd hear the last half of your sentence, and then there'd just be confusion. Like, wait, what? Repeat that. There's just
a point where both people are talking, but neither people are hearing what is being said, and then so you can't.
Oh, somebody needs to do a new edit of that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if they're gonna go, I mean,
both people are still talking, and this would be great. And then
that
what?
Would be
What?
Pretty awesome.
What?
Yeah. Huh? I mean, they could reshoot that whole scene and make it way more comical.
Yeah.
I did write down Winslow's gonna die, but he didn't, so I was happy about that. I noticed that when that Ellis guy was trying to go in and be all smug and I negotiate $1 million deals every day, and he's gonna try to talk to Gruber, and he's talking to McClane on the walkie-talkie, and he said, if you don't come here or give them what they want, then they're gonna kill me. And he was just saying that to make him to try to convince John McClane to do it, and he gives the Gruber the thumbs up. I'm like, he just sealed his own fate.
Yep.
Because now to prove, he caused his own death on that one.
Yeah. He was a sleazeball though.
He was, and it's likely he maybe would have been shot anyway. But I thought, man, you dummy. If you had not said that, then Gruber wouldn't have had to have proven the situation, like the direness of the situation. I mean, typical wasting bullets. Like, I mean, there are moments where McClane did run out of bullets and had to switch clips and stuff, but
Yeah.
there's parts where like a guy will peek his head up and then McClane will shoot for like 4 or 5 seconds after his head drops back down. You're not going to hit him if you're shooting where his head was. So he's just wasting bullets.
Shoot where his head is going to be, not where his head was.
I noticed that the guy that was in the manhole that had to get the grid shut down to get the power cut to the building was the guy who played one of Tom Hanks's neighbors in The Burbs.
Yep.
And I always liked that guy. I didn't look up his name though. He's probably deep in this list of cast on this movie though, so it'll take me a while to, unless you know his name.
Not off the top of my head.
I'm on IMDb. Probably 2002 TV short, The Burbs. What? Where's the actual movie? Wow, you type The Burbs in IMDb and the movie called The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks, does not come up. Interesting. Well, sorry everyone, I didn't pull through on that one. The Argyle, it was weird. For most of that movie, he was just sort of calmly hanging out in his limo, listening to music, waiting for
he was just hanging
John
out.
McClane to get back to him. I mean, don't you think, as a limo driver, you probably have multiple jobs a day, right?
Apparently he didn't.
That must have been his last job for the day, because otherwise I would have just dumped that guy's stuff in the parking garage and then just drove off and gone to my next job. Although maybe it's weird that he just saw somebody. I mean, he knew stuff was up after a while, but then he just saw someone driving that van and he just decides just to crash into it.
Yeah, because I think he wasn't he listening to stuff on like a CB radio?
Yeah. So at the very end, hold on. Oh yeah. So so toward the end, Argyle starts driving up out of the building finally, once everything's kind of done with.
Yeah.
And all the cops draw their guns at the limo driver, right? All John has to do is talk to Al specifically and say, "No, he's with me." And I guess that just calls off every other officer to drop their weapon and not shoot him. The last thing I jotted down was, so the head of the LAPD wanted a piece of John McClane. Like, I'm talking to you now.
Right.
You know, he was after him. Then that last terrorist guy comes out and Al shoots him. And then John can just leave after that.
Yeah.
The LAPD, the head no longer needs to talk to John McClane. He's just free to go. Right?
Yep. 80s movies.
Yeah. So those were my notes for Die Hard.
Okay.
They're probably not me. I'm probably not picking at, key parts of the movie that most people talk about, but.
Right. But in general.
Oh, there's one more thing.
Did you like the movie?
I thought it was good. I think it's a movie that I can understand why so many people like it. And it holds up, it doesn't feel like, obviously there's some obvious things that date it.
Right.
But, I thought it was a good movie. I could see why people would still watch it now.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. I think if it's a movie that you would have saw like back in the day and kind of grew up with it, I'm sure you'd have a fonder connection with it. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Because there are some movies like that, like when people talk about The Goonies or people talk about A Christmas Story, for example. Like, I didn't grow up seeing those, and so, but I've seen chunks of Goonies and A Christmas Story, and it doesn't appeal to me at all. Yeah,
I think Goonies is definitely a movie you kind of have to grow up with, because watching it now, it would super dated and.
Well, maybe it's also because those movies are kind of geared more toward a younger audience, so you have to see them as you're younger to like them.
Yeah.
Like I'm an adult, so if I were to watch Goonies all the way through for the first time, I would have no fondness for it, or like I wouldn't have enjoyed it. Same thing with The Princess Bride.
I feel it's the same way with like The Labyrinth. If you've never seen that as a kid, or if you're just a huge Jim Henson fan. I don't know why Hanson came out of my mouth.
It's movies like that
I think I have a strong fondness for them because they were movies that I watched growing up, like the first Tron movie. You know, that I have a strong connection with that movie because I watched it a ton as a kid, and now, it's not a movie that really holds up because the special effects in it are very, very dated.
Yeah, but they were pretty groundbreaking at the time, weren't they? Wasn't Tron? Wasn't that a pretty groundbreaking movie at the time?
Was the first movie to use computer generated graphics.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was. But it's funny, there are movies like that are good, no matter what. Like I think of movies like Uncle Buck or something. Right. Like that is it's a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good comedy, but someone's going to feel very differently if they're watching it for the first time at a certain age. Right. Isn't that weird? Some movies seem to be able to get past that sort of barrier, and no matter what age you'll watch them for the first time, you enjoy them. But some seem to be stuck where if you didn't watch it when you were 12, you're not going to really like it as much as if you're watching it later. So,
you can probably appreciate it in a different way, but not that same way. Like a lot of those movies have that nostalgia feel versus just I loved that movie so much and it's still super, super good and it holds up. But it's just like, no, watching movies from there is just like, a lot of times for me, it's a nostalgia thing. It's even if the movie doesn't hold up, I still love it because it just, brings me back to that time. Yeah. Like I don't remember how old I was when I was introduced to The Quest for the Holy Grail, the most known Monty Python movie. But whatever year that was, I think it was, if it wasn't daily, it was multiple times a week that we, like during the summer vacation, we'd have it playing once on the TV while we were us kids were in like the living room playing Legos or something. Right. So yeah, same thing. Like that was a movie that I saw at a youngish age that, to me, watching it more recently doesn't really hold up that well. Yeah. But I think that I was at a certain age when I saw it, so it's always going to be like a great movie in my eyes. But, it could also be you've seen it so many times at this point. It was, but it had been several years since I had seen it. But I think what I really loved about it before was the complete randomness of it. Yeah. Like it obviously wasn't as random and now for something completely different, because that was literally a bunch of sketches from the show that they put into a movie. But just random stuff happens out of nowhere in Holy Grail. But I think since the stuff that I try to do is a little more cohesive, I guess. But so that's why I think I like Life of Brian more than Holy Grail, because the stuff that I used to come up with, and you as well, was much more geared or leaning on randomness and having it make no sense. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why something like Holy Grail appealed to me a lot. I can see that. Yeah, Life of Brian is the stuff that happens in that movie. Aside from a couple things, I mean, if you know the movie well enough, there's a part where he gets like picked up by aliens or something like that. Yeah. But aside from a few things like that, there's the humor was kept within the realm of like the era that the movie was taking place, I think. Okay. So I think that's better. I think that's better writing if you can do that. Yeah. Yeah, because if you go back to Holy Grail, they have the whole two completely different timeline things happening with the police. That historian that gets killed and all that. Right? Yeah. So but there's that weirdness but there's just the part where like Sir Robin is in the woods and all of a sudden he comes across some like super tall 3-headed guy, and it's just because like, oh, wouldn't it be funny and silly if there was just some 3-headed guy and they were all arguing with each other? Like that's the reason that they put it in, because they thought that would just be silly. Right. But there'd be, there's no way that could have happened in real life. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know. What do you think? Do you have anything you want to say about Die Hard? That you haven't already said? I don't know. I mean, going back to like comparing it against like the book and stuff, if we wanted to, no, never mind. It's fairly. No, I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's fairly close to the book as far as, I guess, kind of the tone and the general story of it. There's obvious changes they made with, making the main character younger, making it his wife instead of his daughter. But most of the other characters are fairly the same, and they just, it's Hollywood, so they make certain changes to, they want to obviously keep sequels alive, so they are the option for sequels alive, so they do those kind of ending changes to make that happen. Because I guess at the end of the novel, it's kind of alluded that the injuries the main character sustained probably end up killing him.
Oh,
so they do similar stuff like that with First Blood. The novel First Blood, Rambo is killed at the end of the book, and then Hollywood's like, well, if we do that, we can't have sequels, so they change the ending completely. To
one thing interesting,
keep that alive.
One thing I thought was interesting was the whole thing about keeping him barefoot, right? We can't let him have anything on his feet because there's going to be this moment where he has to walk across all this glass. And even when he meets Gruber, not knowing, when Gruber doesn't really know when they meet each other, but they don't know they're meeting each other. Hans Gruber notices he's barefoot, and so there's a point where they're in that part of the building, and Hans says, "Shoot all the glass," just because he knows he's barefoot and he wouldn't be able to get out of there. You would have thought they would have actually shown him walking across the glass,
right?
Because there was a lot of attention to this element of the movie or of his character, but they didn't show it. They just showed him crawling into the bathroom after he had done it, and his feet were bleeding. Yeah. So I guess it's a way to suggest that he did it. That maybe Bruce Willis didn't want to. I mean, he would have walked across something safe, like candy
I'm
glass,
sure they
whatever
could
that stuff
have
is called, but
made it work to look like he was doing it without actually hurting himself.
But then toward the end, when he doesn't have a shirt
though,
up,
that would hurt to
it would
run
hurt.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe there's just no way that he wanted to do anything like that. But then at the end, when he's hanging down by that fire hose, and then he busts the window and then breaks through it, and he doesn't have a shirt on, so he's getting cut to pieces. Like, this guy has had a rough go with glass this movie. Yeah. And then when he walks out of the building finally and sees Sergeant Powell, and Powell gives him a big hug, I'm thinking, man, this guy's tough if he's just letting this happen right now, because that would have hurt like nobody. That would have hurt so much to get hugged and have your back packed by someone's arm. Padded.
I don't know if you have any intention on watching any of the sequels at this point, but
I mean, maybe for the purpose
of
this.
John McClane lives through. If you thought it was bad in Die Hard, it gets ramped up hard.
Well, they have to. They have to amp up each one.
Oh yeah, they get
the next one.
They're getting very Fast and Furious, like, where it's just stuff starts to kind of really, like, you have to really start to
suspend disbelief, as they say.
Whatever that saying is. Just suspend your beliefs disbelief. Or whatever. It's a movie. Just let it happen.
No, the saying I was saying was the correct saying. Suspend your disbelief.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm saying it over and over again. You're like, whatever it is, suspend your belief. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's some kind of saying. Like, I'm telling you what it is. I've said it several times now.
I mean,
to your face.
Whatever it is. I'm having, because I'm having that audio issue with you, I took one of my earbuds out, so I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay, fine.
So you may have said a lot of stuff that I haven't heard.
Well.
But, like,
I'll have to suspend my disbelief that that's really happening to you.
There you go. Like, for instance, in the movie Live Free or Die Hard, there's a scene
where does that one fall in the series?
That's the fourth movie.
Okay. Because Die Hard 2 is just Die Hard with a Vengeance, right?
That's
is that
three.
Just the second one? That's 3.
Yeah, Die
Hard. Is the second one just
2.
called Die Hard 2?
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's a tagline for it. Oh, Die Harder.
Oh, sure.
Anyway,
makes sense.
Yeah. There's a scene in that where there's like a helicopter chasing him, and they kind of go into like a tunnel.
Sure.
And then he like drives the car towards the helicopter out of this thing. It hits some like median thinner ramp, and it flies up and hits the helicopter. Like, there's crap like that. Like, he takes a helicopter down with a car. That. So they get kind of crazy after a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was going to watch them, it would just be for this, just to
let's just go through them all.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll have to maybe. Oh, here's what we can do.
I've never seen the fifth one. So,
Oh, there's a fifth one. Who knows when this will be posted and how far into it will be when this episode finally is able to be listened to. But we could, although never mind, we'd have to provide a list of movies I haven't seen for any listeners to suggest which movie I watch next. So
right.
Anyway, maybe right now we can decide which movie I'll watch next for a future episode.
Well, we need to know what movies haven't you seen that you've been ragged about.
Yeah. I can't think of any right now, so we're not going to do that.
No, we'll figure something out, and then we'll do another episode later.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Do you think we're done now?
I've been done for a while.
Okay, we're done. Hey, this was another episode of High School Famous, and we're done now. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you like us, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as HSFamousPod. Email us at highschoolfamous@gmail.com. If you really love us, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/highschoolfamous. Remember, we love you and want to have your babies.